MV Semlo, conveying UN food supplies for wave casualties, was seized by privateers in transit from Mombasa, Kenya, to Bosaso, Somalia. They held the boat for 100 days. Privateers off the shoreline of Somalia have seized a United Nations contracted boat with its 12-part group, not long after it dumped 1,800 metric huge loads of food help and gear. The UN World Food Programme, WFP, is profoundly worried about the well-being of team individuals and the vessel. Peter Goossens, the organization's country director for Somalia, said capture of the MV Razan. Such demonstrations of theft may sabotage the conveyance of alleviation food to weak individuals in Somalia and could additionally demolish the predominant unsafe, compassionate circumstance. WFP is in close contact with Somalia's Transitional Federal Government, TFG, the experts in Puntland in the north of the nation, and with the vessel's representatives, to acquire the most dependable data and to guarantee the soonest arrival of the vessel and group, 6 Sri Lankans, including the chief, and 6 Kenyans. In 2005, after 2 prior captures, WFP briefly needed to suspend conveyances of food help via ocean for certain weeks, yet from that point forward ocean conveyances have been continuous. This time the boat had quite recently conveyed WFP food and UN Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, here in Berbera and in Bosaso in Puntland, and was cruising buoyed back to Mombasa, from where it was sanctioned when it was seized. Privateers seized a sister vessel, the MV Semlo, in June 2005 with WFP alleviation food ready for 28,000 survivors of the Indian Ocean torrent and held it for over 100 days in Somali waters in June 2005. The group was delivered safe. One more vessel with WFP food help, the MV Miltso, was seized for 33 hours in October 2005 while it was currently dumping food in the port of Merka. The Taiwanese fishing vessel was commandeered on May 28, 2007. The enduring team of 10 Chinese, 2 Taiwanese and 2 Filipino group individuals was delivered on November 5 subsequent to going through over a half year in bondage. One Chinese group part was killed by the privateers on May 28 in light of the fact that the boat's proprietors neglected to fulfill their payoff needs. When around 15 privateers raged on board vessel equipped with programmed rifles, automatic weapons and rocket-impelled projectiles. The group was unarmed and one part was shot toward the back. He made do, yet when arrangements with the boat's Taiwanese proprietors were going severely, the privateers killed another team member. He is 32-year-old Chen Tao from China. Chen Tao was extremely unfortunate since they just took him at irregular. He was snatched out of an arrangement, then, at that point, 6 shots that rang out on the opposite side of the boat. The team were in shock. Only for cash privateers ended a day-to-day existence. They are not human. 14 individuals were requested to drag the man's body into the boat's coolers, where group demanded it stay. The privateers needed to toss it to the sharks at the start. Service of Foreign Affairs of Taiwan Representative David Wangban, at that point, said the service would look to give help to the stole group individuals. Up to this point, the service had not gotten sufficient data from the groups of the team or the fishery offices required to decide the strategy to take, he said. Wang said the circumstance stayed baffling and that the boat proprietor and the families had kept a position of safety since the kidnapping. We have not gotten a solicitation for help from the families, Wang said, adding it was hard to get data as Taiwan doesn't have an agent office in Somalia. Saving the Qingfenghua 168 and its team will require some time, however we will do what we can, Wang said. Piracy nearly vanished during the half-year wherein a severe Islamist development was in power, yet has encountered a resurgence since the beginning of this current year when Ethiopian and Somali soldiers removed the Islamists. Somalia has been without a viable government since the 1991 ouster of despot Mohammed Said Barre started a wicked power battle. The SY Quest occurrence in February 2011, for Americans holiday were cruising around the world on board their yacht, the SY Quest. Unfortunately, their fun finished when they were raged by 19 Somali privateers while cruising 200 miles off the shoreline of Oman. With the 4 Americans as a prisoner, the privateers coordinated the yacht towards Somalia. Accordingly, the U.S. Navy dispatched a few warships, including a directed rocket destroyer, to manage the circumstance. They captured the privateers in the Indian Ocean a couple of days after the fact, and 2 of the privateers were brought on board one of the Navy boats to arrange. The privateers were proposed to take the yacht and each of its substances in return for the 4 Americans. However, the privateers declined, accepting the prisoners were worth very much more in emancipate cash. While arrangements were occurring, a privateer terminated an RPG at one of the Navy delivers, however missed it. Very quickly subsequently, discharges were heard from the taken yacht, and a group of Navy SEALs was immediately dispatched to safeguard the prisoners. A concise engagement followed, bringing about the passing of 2 privateers, one by battle blade and the other by a projectile. Every one of the excess privateers gave up. Sadly, each of the 4 prisoners was found to have been shot and killed, close by the bodies of 2 different privateers with no clarification for their demises. The caught Somalis were tested and condemned in the U.S. There are an expected 72 privateer gatherings, 4 sea organizations, as per Oliver Taylor of Listverse, January 2019. Financial backers pay in cash, or hardware like weapons. Similarly, open organizations do in the desire for a major profit. Assuming if commandeering is fruitful, the main part of the cash goes to these financial backers, not the troopers in the speedboats who gaze intently at the barrel of freight transport. The infantrymen remain to get a measly $30 to $75,000. The Ares 13, a Comoros-held big hauler having a place with a Greek organization, was on the way from the Somali capital Mogadishu to Djibouti, Somalia's northern neighbor, when it disappeared off the coast almost a town called Caligula. Missing before the vessel skipper answered to the organization, they were drawn closer by 2 dinghies, and that one of them they could see outfitted faculty on board the boat shifted direction not long after that report. An authority in the semi-independent province of Puntland said multiple dozen men boarded the boat off Somalia's northern coast. The Ares 13 had been endeavoring to go through the Socotra Gap, a course among Ethiopia and the island of Socotra in Yemen, when it was boarded by the privateers. The course is frequently utilized by vessels going along the east shoreline of Africa as an alternate route to set aside time and cash. The delivery followed a gunfight between the privateers and the Marine Power, and afterward concentrated exchanges between the Marine Power, family elderly folks, and the privateers. There has been a conversation happening after the gunfight. Marine Power pulled Powers back, thus the privateers disappeared. After a day, a payoff request was made. Notwithstanding, soon thereafter, only 4 days after the privateer struck, the boat was delivered, without a payoff being paid. It's said that the privateers discovered that Somali money managers had recruited the Ares 13. After we came to realize that the Somali dealers recruited the oil big hauler, we delivered it without a payment, Reuters detailed one of the privateers as saying. In past hijackings, many teams stayed in bondage for quite a long time. The delivery will be viewed as a triumph for the local Puntland government and its counter-theft power, which is subsidized by the United Arab Emirates. In any case, assaults fell strongly after teams set up security measures and territorial maritime powers moved forward watches. A few privateers got back to fishing, and others became engaged with carrying individuals and weapons across the Red Sea to Yemen. Privateers are holding a Ukrainian claim transport stacked with Russian tanks of the East African coast. 33 T-72 fundamental fight tanks were going to an obscure purchaser in Sudan. The Kenyan government has said, nonetheless, that the tanks had been bought as a component of the modernization of its military. Nobody is even very certain where the tanks were bound for when the privateers blocked the freight vessel Fina. The United States quickly sent 3 warships to the scene to watch out for the Fina. The boat is secured in the Somali Narrows alongside 2 other commandeered freight vessels. A Russian warship is additionally hurried to the scene. The Somali privateers were oblivious to the uncommon freight the boat is conveying. They trusted themselves to have been lucky when they found the tanks installed because they started setting progressively higher payment requests, the most lavish of which was $35 million to deliver the vessel and team. They, at last, chose an interest of $20 million. Yet, they seriously miscounted. Afraid of new tanks total with ammo and extra parts were simply too large of a prize to pass on to the privateers, who may attempt to offer the hardware to fearmongers, authoritarian African systems, or to the groups currently battling in Somalia. Anyway, the FINIC can't move away, and the privateers installed are caught. The strain is building. That is shown by a shootout among the thieves that killed 3 of them. They appear to be quarreling about whether they should keep on demanding a payment. Following a 4.5-month deadlock, pirates dash off in little boats, with a $3.2 million payment. Emancipate was dropped via plane. It was a huge payoff. However, it was far beneath their unique interest of $20 million. The U.S. naval force remained defenseless, unfit to confront the privateers since they hold almost 150 different sailors prisoner. The commander passed on from a respiratory failure. Assuming that you envisioned 12 worldwide aircrafts had been commandeered and were stopped at an air terminal someplace, while $12 million payoff cash was being requested, then, at that point, there would be a flat-out clamor, some way or another we don't appear to have a similar political consideration adrift. Odd? An extravagant voyage transport conveying 210 team individuals and travelers was assaulted by privateers off the bank of Somalia. Travelers stirred to the sound of gunfire as 2 25-foot inflatable boats moved toward the liner. The Laird of Seattle, who was going on the boat with her girl and a companion, her girl saw the privateers out of their window. Riding in 2 little speedboats, the privateers shot at the boat with automatic weapons and rocket-pushed explosives. However, the group drove them off with a water hose and a long-reach acoustic gadget. The team had been prepared for different situations, including individuals attempting to get on the boat that you don't need on the boat. 2 equipped boats moved toward the Seaborne Spirit around 100 miles off the shore of Somalia and shot as the boat's tenants endeavored to get locally available, while a portion of the privateers raked the boat with programmed weapons shoot, others discharged rocket-moved explosives, RPGs, one of which entered the side of the Seaborne Spirit and detonated in a vacant traveler lodge. While the boat's commander took hesitant moves, the travelers were guided underneath the deck to the boat's lounge area. All travelers had been moved to the focal point of the boat. Subsequently, none were harmed in the assault, albeit 1 crew member was hit by shrapnel. The Spirit's skipper endeavored to smash one of the boats, then, at that point, surpassed the privateers and escaped. Riding in 2 little speedboats, Seaborne Spirit steered the boat to make waves to topple the boats of privateers, and at one point he almost slammed one of the boats. The privateers shot at the boat with assault rifles and rocket-pushed projectiles. However, the group drove them off with a water hose and a long-reach acoustic gadget. In the interim Seaborne Spirit, safety measures were taken. Power outage conditions were forced on those with outside lodges, outside decks were prepared with water guns, and beyond the field of play to all travelers. While the higher-up decks, normally the center of evening time frivolities, were calmer than a congregation on Tuesday. None of the vessel's 151 travelers, for the most part, Americans for certain Australians and Europeans, were harmed. The 10,000-ton voyage transport, enrolled in the Bahamas, supported minor harm. It took some fire, but it's protected to cruise. The waters off the east bank of Africa, particularly along the shore of Somalia, are currently known to be the absolute most risky ocean courses on the globe. One oceanic revealing organization recommends that any boat coming surprisingly close to Somalia will probably be assaulted by privateers. At first, the prospect of privateers summons pictures of Hook, Sparrow, or even those colleagues from Penzance, yet very much like the genuine privateers of old, these advanced privateers mean business and they play hard. These are frantic, irate youngsters with AK-47s and perspectives to coordinate. They get into their little speedboats, head out onto the high oceans, and take on boats of more than 150,000 tons. Yet, to see them as a little band of hired fighter sharks looking to hornswoggle heaps of goods is short-sighted.